Hola, comrades. Today's topic of interest, Breath of the Wild. The Legend of Zelda series had been defining gaming again and again, from the original game to A Link to the Past to Ocarina of Time, but in the 2000s it lost its mojo slightly. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were great, but they weren't era-defining like those previous games. For a time, it seemed like the 2010s were going to continue that steady downslide, as Skyward Sword, a game I personally adore, was compared negatively to previous games in the series and to its contemporaries, among them Skyrim. But then, Breath of the Wild was released. It has become the most discussed game on the internet since its release, but not enough discussion has gone into its sheer importance in not only keeping the Zelda brand fresh for a new generation, but in changing the gaming landscape forever. Every decade has its defining games. When you think of the 80s, you think of Donkey Kong and Super Mario Bros. And Zelda and Metroid. For the 90s, you think of Pokemon and Final Fantasy VII and so on. But what makes a game defining is that it changes the way people play and see video games, enhances what gaming can be. Why Breath of the Wild is important for the Zelda franchise is easy to parse. The largest revolution in the series was Ocarina of Time. That game set in stone many tenets of future titles, even those varying as wildly in tone as Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Breath of the Wild was a breath of fresh air for the series, abandoning what was tried and true in favor of a vast open world more in line with the Elder Scrolls or The Witcher, these big open games of the generation. But as for why it's the most important game of the decade, it's important to acknowledge that even though Breath of the Wild brings the series more in line with those major Western RPGs, it is still demonstrably Zelda. This is Nintendo, they're not copycats. If anything, they're too against the grain. The races you've come to know and love in Zelda, the Gorons, the Zora, the Sheikah, even some less common races like Wind Waker's Rito and Korux, are back and fleshed out, but Zelda is about more than its races. It's about the adventure, the puzzle solving, the sublime feeling of discovery, and how it plays, but more importantly, how it feels. Zelda is unlike any other series, and Breath of the Wild is no exception. And herein lies Breath of the Wild's importance. It is wholly and boldly an open-world game, but it doesn't lose the essence of the series. Skyrim, The Witcher 3, these games are fantastic, but with their commitment to realism and their character customization and their desire to give the player freedom, something is lost. You're immersed, but you're still connected to reality, our reality. These games want the player to forget that they're playing a video game, but there is a value in not disguising that fact. When you come to an area in one of these games, you examine it like you would examine an area in the real world, albeit with more collectibles. But when you come to an area in a Zelda game, you know it serves a purpose. You know that if you explore, really dig into your environment, you'll find neat secrets, and this carries into Breath of the Wild. Even look at the art styles. The landscapes in games like The Witcher 3 or Skyrim are breathtaking. They look like places you can visit in our world that you'd want to visit, and I won't deny there's something appealing to that. I won't deny that there are good reasons why realism is popular, but it is obviously not the only way. Starting with Wind Waker, Zelda refused to be purely realistic. Even its most realistic game, Twilight Princess, has major elements of stylism. Over the last 5 to 10 years, Zelda has seemed to have settled on a set of styles that are somewhere between Twilight Princess and The Wind Waker, and it's a good fit for the series. Breath of the Wild goes for a style similar to a Studio Ghibli film. Zelda is no stranger to lifting from Ghibli. I played Ocarina as a kid and was shocked when I came back to it and saw how much had been inspired by Ghibli movies, but it's most obvious here, and that's fitting as the spirit of Ghibli movies is that of a very human adventure. Zelda games stand out from these sprawling open-world games by the humanity in their environments. What I mean by that is that everything feels alive, like the world is a group of organisms that respond to you instead of merely a place. The drawback to this before Breath of the Wild is that the environment was limited in scale compared to massive Western RPGs. But Breath of the Wild changed everything. Now you could have both. This emotionally evocative, almost empathetic environment, and a grand scale. For the longest time, it was presumed that these two approaches, which reflect two different philosophies toward gaming, could not be combined into a satisfactory product, but Breath of the Wild proved the naysayers wrong. When I'm watching a great animated series, especially Atla or Korra, I remark how you could take any random landscape shot and frame it and it would be gorgeous. The same is true of Breath of the Wild. Every mountain, every forest, every lake, they look as gorgeous as any feature in any game because they look more than real. They look alive. That is not to say what Breath of the Wild does is inherently better than what Skyrim or The Witcher 3 do, and it is definitely not to say that great Western RPGs should try to copy Breath of the Wild. That would be as much of a disaster as if Breath of the Wild had tried to directly copy Skyrim. What I'm saying is this. We have reached the stage in gaming where innovation is no longer a given. We as gamers have watched our art form evolve rapidly through the last 35 years, going from pixels on arcade screens to a powerful and fundamental force in our lives. It's humbling to think that a verdant masterpiece like Breath of the Wild could have its roots in such a raw, simple project as the original Legend of Zelda. Because of how much it has changed in the past, it is tempting to think that gaming will continue to change as much in the next 35 years, but that's unlikely. There's not going to be any major leap like from 2D to 3D, and although graphics and processing power are getting better with every new generation of systems, the difference is growing smaller. Take the difference between the SNES and the N64. Now compare that to the difference between the PS3 and the PS4. It's a scary thought, but there may be no revolutions left in gaming. Our art form is more malleable than books or movies, though, and it can continue to evolve if there is a commitment to evolution. As to what that looks like in the modern age, Breath of the Wild offers a shining example. I can honestly say there is no game like it on the market. There is talk that Breath of the Wild returns the series more to its roots, meaning the original game released now 30 years ago, but while that was an inspiration, the exploration of that game was banal, like solving a maze, while the exploration of Breath of the Wild is charming and thorough. This has the heart and feeling the series has been known for, just more of it. It shows going open world doesn't mean sacrificing the basic fundamental intrigue of the world and the characters. The previous decades of gaming have borne out that other games of a generation follow its trendsetters, so I'm hoping that more games copy Breath of the Wild, if not in quality, then at least in ideas. So as you explore the caverns and mountains of Breath of the Wild, as I'm sure you're still doing because this game never gets old, realize that this game explores what is possible for gaming as an art form, how it can continue to grow and expand its horizons and stave off stagnation. For that, more than for its quality or what it did for the Zelda series, that is why Breath of the Wild is the most important game of the decade and one of the most important ever for the long-term future of our beloved gaming. Where exactly can the Zelda series go from here? I haven't a clue, but I'm excited to find out. If you liked what you saw today and want to support more amazing content, consider supporting me on Patreon. And also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that sweet stuff. Adios, comrades!